Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. Welcome. Oh, it's Thanksgiving today. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I've already eaten with my family, so, well, at least part of my family anyway. Of course, I got a big family. So, yeah, I think it's time to start streaming. I got some pecan pie downstairs for later, too. I'm gonna gobble up some pecan pie. Gobble, 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 gobble. I want to do some more recordings for some of the Monster Families videos. We have managed to complete a large portion of the Monster Family videos. In fact, I got a large number of them uploaded and ready to go just a little while ago. If you guys haven't seen the Monster Families vidges, there is a playlist for the Monster Family videos. It's right here. Share. And I will copy that for you guys. So far, we have finished all of Act 1, all of Act 2, and all of Act 3. So we currently have a large number of videos currently up. Of course, I started with the Fallen, which are the baby monsters in Act 1. And the last video that we've currently done is the council members in Act 3. So we're going to be moving on to Act 4 today. We're going to be doing some of the Act 4 monsters. And there's not very many monsters in Act 4. I mean, technically, two of them get combined together because the Vile Mother and the Vile Child are basically the same. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's basically only 5 monsters in Act 4, so we'll be finished with Act 4 relatively quickly. It really just comes down to the fact that Act 4 really just doesn't have a lot of monsters to begin with. Let's go ahead and hit that intro button. I'm going to hop into voice chat today, but I will be muting myself whenever I do the recordings. So if you guys want to join me today, feel free. But know that I will be hopping in and out of voice chat, or rather muting myself in and out as the day goes as I do the recordings. And bink. All right, let's get some water. It's always nice to have some refreshment nearby. Some snacks. Get some barbecue pork and twists. Barbecue pork. Oh yeah. That's cool stuff. Oh yeah. And we need to go find the first monster on the list. What are we going to do first? That's the question. Finger Mage, Mega Demon, Regurgitator, Oblivion Knight, Vile Mother, and Vile Child. All right, so first things first, let's pull up the guest demon versions of all of these. So in Diablo 2, there are guest demons for just about every type of demon in Act. There are their original acts, and then in Act 5, they're called guest demons. See it right here, guest monsters. So there are guest versions which are different than their counterparts. So we'll pull up those pages as well. I don't know if there's any guest regurgitators, but let's check. Oh, there is a guest regurgitator. Interesting. All right. Oblivion Knights. Oh, O'Reilly. Auto parts. Wow, the Oblivion Knights are not on the list. I know there's Oblivion Knights in the guest monster list. This doesn't seem right. Well, maybe they're called something else. I'm like 1,000% sure there are guest versions, or at least there are Act 5 versions of these monsters. Hmm. Huh. Hmm. Heh. Hmm. Well, I guess not on the list anyway. We've got the Vile Mother. I don't even know if the Vile Mother is in Act 5, actually. I guess they are. Okay. The Vile Mother and the Vile Child. I wonder if there's an entry. I guess it really doesn't matter. Alright, so it looks like the first one we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing the Finger Mage. The Finger Mage is a strange monster indeed. I swear the Finger Mage doesn't actually do any damage. Finger Mage is stun. I've never seen the Finger Mage's stun. That seems very strange. It says Finger Mage just stun players. I don't think I've ever seen a Finger Mage stun a player before. Where's the volume so low? Alright, let's go find some Finger Mages, shall we?
Impossible.
Oh, look at that big honking stack of Finger Mages. All the other monsters real quick so I can just have the Finger Mages on the screen. Oh my god, there's so many monsters here that are not Oblivion or not the freaking Finger Mages. That boy's got multi-shot over there. Nasty. Okay, that should be good enough. I actually kind of want to use him for a for the video on the Oblivion Nights. Alright, so we have plenty of mages, plenty of Finger Mages, so that is prepped. Happy Freedom Thanksgiving for the boyos down south. Well, Dropping items off the map. Yeah, we'll talk about that. There actually was a during this season, like season 12. I'm pretty sure during one of the seasons, or one of the episodes of the season, actually somebody actually had Grand Visor of Chaos drop the items off the map, and I can't remember what day that was. I think it was kind of early on in the season. I don't remember like how early, but it was like one of the days in the season. There was this day where we literally just like ran around and we were trying to get this item that fell off the map, and I can't remember what day it was. It was in a chaos run, and we literally just like could not get the item. It was just sitting off the map. I remember I even went into the game and tried to get it myself, and I couldn't get it. I have no idea what day it was, though. Would be really fun to include it in the video if I could remember what day that happened. The item in particular wasn't a very valuable item. It was just a Valkyrie wing. So it must have been earlier on in the season, I would assume. Hmm. Definitely not that day. Man, so many live streams, I don't even know where it is. I don't remember what day it was. Poopity poopities. Twerkle fart. I think I'm ready to record this video. There's really not a whole lot to talk about with finger mages, but I can pretty much sum it all up pretty quickly. Let's go ahead and we'll start the recording. If this is the first time you've joined me for live recordings, basically what I do is I get all the information ready in advance, and then I do the intro, start the recording, record, and usually I don't reply to any comments while I'm recording, and then I end the video by doing the outro, and then move on to the next video. I'm basically just recording these videos live, so you get to see the process. I thought it was a neat little fun way that we can interact with each other while I'm doing my work. All right, so 3, 2, 1, let's jam. Do 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 do. Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Monster Families. Today we're going to be looking at one of the first Act 4 monsters that we've covered in this series, and this is the Finger Mage. I have a whole bunch of these Finger Mages here. There's not a lot to go over with these guys, and they're not really the most challenging monsters to fight. I do have some very interesting stories, though, when it comes to these guys, because they are definitely one of the weirdest, like, when it comes to odd things that occur. One thing that you may have noticed, or may have not noticed, is that the little things that they shoot at you, where they're knitting their little sweaters, are actually little spiders. If you haven't ever actually paid attention to it, if you look at them really closely, you will clearly see that they are little tiny spiders coming at you in a line. And it's very obvious when you zoom in and you actually really pay attention and look at them, but it's not as obvious, like, if you're not paying attention, and you may have never known that they were launching little tiny spiders at you. It's an interesting little quirk. Another interesting thing about the Stormcasters, or the Finger Mages, or whatever you want to call them, is that they generally don't drop weapons and armor. There are a list of monsters in the game that have very low, or basically zero drop chance for weapons and armor, and the Stormcasters are one of them. They do not drop weapons, and they do not drop armor. This usually means that they have a higher drop chance for the other things that they don't drop, because they cannot drop any of the weapons and armor in the game. Now, do keep in mind, however, that this does not include elites. So if you kill an elite Finger Mage, or a champion Finger Mage, the elite or champion Finger Mage can drop weapons and armor, and this is because they are given that difference because they are an elite. So when I say that they cannot drop weapons and armor, this refers specifically to the regular Finger Mages, like this one right here, that has no minion category or anything underneath of it. So the regular Finger Mages are incapable of dropping weapons and armor. See the little slits in their eyes? They almost look like little Minecraft characters. I kind of want to, like, take a screenshot of it and just show you, like, what it looks like, because it's kind of funny looking. Hold on. Let me see if I can get a good picture of it. Of course, it's really hard to get in here without accidentally losing the perspective that I need. There we go. Nope, not quite. There we go. Look at those eyes. They kind of look like little Minecraft characters. Now, an interesting thing about these guys is that they are so very weak in how much damage that they put out that most of the time you will almost never die to Finger Mages. Now, granted, Finger Mages can be very annoying because they steal all your mana, and apparently, according to the list, it says that they actually have a chance of stunning you, but I've never seen that happen. I'm not really sure exactly where that comes from. On the Ariat Summit page, it literally says Finger Mages will also stun players with their attack, but I don't think I've ever seen a Finger Mage stun me, so I'm not exactly sure if that's true or not. But they do so little damage in the game that one of the funniest things is that if you ever die to Finger Mages, like Grand Visor of Chaos, for instance, it is an event which will very likely turn some heads, and your group of people that you're playing with will often be like, alright, we need to work on your gear. Like, you just died to one of the weakest monsters in the game. Like, I don't think I've seen anybody die to Grand Visor of Chaos, and if you die to Grand Visor of Chaos, then we need to figure out what's going on. There was actually a pretty funny event that actually happened in one of the latter seasons where we had somebody die to Grand Visor of Chaos. And everybody in the group immediately turned their head and were like, whoa, I can't believe that you died to Grand Visor of Chaos. That makes no sense whatsoever. Which then prompted a detective work where we were basically trying to figure out why they were dying over and over again. And it turned out that they were basically mooching every single character that they had up till level 90. I'm not even joking. If you would like to, like, watch this, there actually is a clip of it on my channel. I'm gonna see here. It's called 15 G-Rushed Characters to 90. Professional Moocher, GGM After Dark, and it's literally just like a 44-minute clip of us finding out that this guy who died to Grand Visor of Chaos had been mooching like 15 characters all the way to level 90 and put in absolutely zero work to make these characters sustainable in any environment. And to make matters absolutely worse, he was on an Amazon, which you could literally just put 1 point and dodge, avoid, and evade, and become like moderately tanky just for having those bonuses. This guy died to a finger mage, one of like the easiest monsters in the game, Grand Visor of Chaos, which doesn't even really do that much damage at all. Now, they have a lot of different names. If you go and you take a look at the page, they are called Finger Mages. That is the first name that they have. They're also called Doomcasters, Stranglers, Stormcasters, and there is also some guest versions, which are also called Stranglers and Stormcasters. Let's read what Ariat Summit has to say about these guys. The Mage Clan Wars brought forth many bizarre devices and organisms devised to defeat rival sorcerers. The surest way to halt magic of an enemy spellcaster was to eliminate the source of power by draining his personal reserves of mana. Although this overwhelming ability ordinarily requires the use of a focus, a group of ingenious mages constructed a creature that had this innate talent. After the wars ended, these finger mages were left to starve and die by those that had created them. Unfortunately, their own magical energy led to hungering creatures to their hidden sanctum, where the sorcerers were drained before they could mount a defense. Now these strange manifestations have been drawn to the gates of hell in search of even greater sources of energy. Finger mazes have homing a missile attack that will quickly drain mana. Sorceresses and necromancers should stay as far away from these as possible. Honestly, everybody hates them because they steal mana. Finger mages also stun players with their attack. Again, I don't know where that comes from. Chill or freeze these monsters whenever possible to prevent their stuns and mana drain. You can kind of avoid the mana drain, by the way, just by not getting hit by the mana drain. Like, they shoot the little mana drain at you, and the mana drain follows you. If you don't get hit by the mana drain, it doesn't drain you. So, like, when you see the spiders coming after you, you have to actually get hit by the spiders for the mana drain to occur. So, their mana drain isn't even really that bad, considering there's a lot worse mana drains in the game. Like, obviously, there's mana burn, which is an elite modifier. There's also, the gloams, which steal mana. There's the bugs that steal mana. There's a bunch of different monsters in the game that have mana, like, stealing effects. And honestly, theirs is the easiest to avoid out of all of them if you are a ranged character or a spellcaster, because all you have to do is just not let the spiders touch you. However, if you stand there and you let the spiders touch you, then yes, they will drain away all your mana relatively quickly. And you see I have 0 mana right now because they're just sucking it all away. Now these Doomcasters, Stranglers, Stormcasters, all of them are undead monsters, so they work. They die really quickly when you have things like Holy Bolt, Fist of the Heavens, etc. They also don't really have very much HP. If you look over here, they have 3,502 to 6,800, and even the Act 5 versions are about the same. To put that in perspective, like, maximum HP that you can have on a monster is like 22,000. Minimum is around like 800, so they tend to be very low on the board, but not necessarily the lowest, which makes them relatively easy to kill for most players. They do have some resistances. They have 50% physical resistance in hell difficulty, but none in normal and nightmare. They've got no magic. They have some fire resistance, but it's really weird. So if you've ever went to Grand Visor of Chaos in Nightmare difficulty, you would note that he's immune to fire in Nightmare difficulty. However, in Hell difficulty, he's not immune to fire. And you see here that they have fire resistance in normal and Nightmare difficulty, but then all of a sudden they have no fire resistance in Hell difficulty. And I'm not exactly sure why the switch occurs, but there definitely is a switch that happens. In Nightmare difficulty, and they are immune to fire, and in Hell difficulty, they have 0 fire resistance whatsoever, and the immunity to fire for Grand Visor of Chaos goes away. They have no cold resistance whatsoever, and they do generally have lightning resistance, as well as being immune to lightning in Hell difficulty. This is where the switch happens. So once you get to Hell difficulty, they become immune to lightning, and they are no longer resistant to fire at all, which is really quite strange. So it's definitely like an odd thing, but they still have lightning resistance and fire resistance in normal and nightmare. They just lose all of their fire resistance in Hell. They have no poison resistance either, so they're generally easy to kill by poison, cold, and magic, whereas lightning and fire tend to be the worst. But then fire actually gets better in hell difficulty, because then they're not immune to fire anymore. So you basically just get free damage on them in hell, but fire sucks on them in nightmare. Overall, they're not really very difficult monsters to kill. One of the most annoying things about them is that they steal your mana. Another of the one of the most annoying things about them is that they can be pushed off of the platform, and when they die, they will drop you nothing. There are a lot of ways that you could potentially push them off the platform, by the way. You could knock them back. You could leap them off of the platform. They can fly off of the platform themselves. There's a lot of various ways that the monsters generally tend to be kind of like screwed over by the way that they can fly. To give you an example, I'm going to go ahead and knock some of them off the platform right now. I'm just going to leap them off the platform. And as you can see, they float off the platform. Now, if a monster dies and they're not over top of solid ground, one of two things happens. Either A, the loot drops on the ground and you can't pick it up. This has actually happened before. You can see it, you just can't get to it, and you can't pick it up. Or B, the loot just simply is instantly destroyed and you never see it. This happens a lot in Arcane Sanctuary, but it also happens here in Chaos Sanctuary as well, is that when you kill a monster that is over top of the lava, it can either drop the item and then you can't pick it up, or it just will not drop any items at all because the monster is not over top of something that counts as land. In one of the streams, I can't remember which one it was on, we had a situation where Grand Visor of Chaos dropped a unique helmet. It was a Valkyrie wing, and it was like in the lava down here, and nobody could pick it up. We tried like every method we could imagine, tried to teleport down there, tried to leap, tried to like click on it from different angles, like it just, nothing was going to work. So this is poopy. Finger mages have kind of a cool graphic, at least. Their graphic really didn't change that much between the old version of the game and the new version of the game, I feel like. Although I do kind of like the old version a little bit better because I feel like they glow. I don't know. The glow is more cool. Overall, they're so weak that most of the time dying to them is not even like on the table. It's kind of hard to explain just how weak the finger mages are in terms of damage. And when you look at the sheet, like it doesn't really explain that, because if you look at it, it says they do 51 to 112 or 52 to 115, but they're not, though. Like they're actually doing way less than this somehow, and I can't explain it. I think it has something to do with the fact that they primarily use their homing missile attack, which is the one that drains mana, and their homing missile attack is not either one of their melee attacks. And so their melee attacks possibly could do damage, but they seem to be preoccupied with using the homing draining mana attack, which doesn't seem to do any actual damage whatsoever. If anything, it seems to only drain mana, and that's about it. I don't even know if it even has a physical damage component, because you can stand there almost infinitely most of the time and let them shoot that lightning. They're the little drain mana things at you. Now, if you do manage to get them in melee combat, which I could potentially taunt one right now, if I can stay away for a second to build my mana back up. Hold on. Alright, here we go. I'll try and taunt one and see if I can force one into melee. So that's their melee attack, and it looks like laser beams. And that attack probably does decent physical damage. But they rarely, if ever, use that attack. So you don't really have anything to worry about with these guys. The most notable of these types of monsters is the Grand Visor of Chaos, which of course you have to fight to be able to continue with the Diablo. So just to even clear the game, even in classic mode, you have to kill Grand Visor of Chaos. Like the Grand Visor of Chaos is immune to fire in Nightmare, and he's immune to lightning in Hell difficulty. Now let's go ahead and spawn him real quick just for fun. Alright, so there we have Grand Visor of Chaos, and as you can see, this one in particular is immune to physical and not immune to lightning. Huh. Interesting. Am I in Hell difficulty? I always laugh whenever anybody dies the Grand Visor of Chaos. It's got to be one of the biggest, like, embarrassing moments. If you're on, like, a new character, like a baby character or something, if you're on, like, a, you know, you're getting power leveled or whatever, and you don't have any equipment, like, I'm not going to laugh at you. But if you actually have a geared character and you die to Grand Visor of Chaos, I'm going to laugh in your face. Like, I am 100% gonna laugh right in your face, and then I'm gonna get worried too because I'm gonna be like, "Oh man, this guy died to Grand Visor of Chaos. Maybe he needs some help setting up his character." I think that's pretty much it for this monster. One other thing that we could potentially talk about is their revive status. Are they good as revives? No, they are terrible as revives. They generally only cast their stupid mana drain, and most monsters don't care about mana, and they don't have mana as far as I know. So, you know, draining the monster's mana as from a revive standpoint is completely useless. They do relatively no physical damage, and they don't really attack very often. So they make absolutely horrible revives. Don't revive them. And I think that's it. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals joining. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button if you are enjoying the content, because this is my full-time job. And as always, keep watching. All right. That does the finger mages, which are, I don't think there's any ones that are actually called finger mages in the game, but that is the actual official designation of the mages, is the finger mages. What's up, Power Thinker? Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, my friend. Happy Thanksgiving again. Let's go ahead and get rid of these Stormcasters.
I need mana.
Finger mages are the ones in Arcane Sanctuary. I do not believe there are any finger mages in Arcane Sanctuary. There are vampires. There are goats. There are ghosts. And there is the summoner. And that is it. There are no finger mages in Arcane Sanctuary, as far as I'm aware. The only other thing in Arcane Sanctuary, besides goats, vampires, and ghosts, is the lightning towers. That's it. That is it. I don't think there is any of these guys that are actually called finger mages within the game. The finger mage is the Doomcaster, the Strangler, and the Stormcaster. This is the classification of these monsters, and a lot of the times the classification of the monster doesn't really match the name of the monster at all. Like, for instance, the Pit Lords and the other monsters that you guys know by one specific name, like these monsters right here, the Balrogs, the Pit Lords, and the Venom Lords, are referred to in the game files as Mega Demons. Yes, they're called Mega Demons. Have you ever seen one labeled Mega Demon? No, you have not. So, I mean, it's... I don't know why you would even argue with these designations, because these designations are just in the files, essentially. Like, this is what they are referred to in the files. And that's exactly what I'm going to call them. Like, that's the name of the entire family, essentially. Every Balrog, every Pit Lord, and every Venom Lord is a Mega Demon. They are of the Mega Demon family. Every Doomcaster, Strangler, and Stormcaster is in the Finger Mage family. That's why I call these videos the Monster Family videos, because we're talking about the entire family across all of the types, not just simply one type of the family. Happy Thanksgiving, Steven. Cabs Bass. I think we're done with the Finger Mage. Move on. Um, hmm. Hmm, hmm, hmm. Do a diddy diddy dum diddy do. A do a diddy diddy dum diddy do. Look good, look fine. Ba-da-da-da-da. Now this is an awkward one, and I think we're gonna have to like add some organs in. I think we're gonna need some organs because like this is one. Well, actually, do we want to put the organs on? I didn't do it for the skeletons, and I didn't do it for any of the other ones. I didn't do it for the vampires. Eh, meh, eh. I don't really think it matters. Those Uber Tristram versions are could be done in like a video on their own. I'm not really sure the Uber Tristram versions should be included in the base versions. I don't know. For better or worse, I'm alone today, sadly. Alone? How are you alone when you're with me? How are you alone when you're hanging out here with me? I'm not some big giant celebrity with like 10 trillion people that doesn't read the comments and couldn't care two bits that you're here. If you're here, you're hanging out with me. Actually, you're hanging out with all of us. We got people in chat too. Hmm. 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 I I'll be honest with you. I hate these guys. I these are like some of my like worst monsters in this game, and it's really not because they're particularly difficult to kill. It's not because they hurt me that much. It's because they have so much HP and they're such damage sponge monsters. Man, that was a crunchy one. They killed your buddy in a hardcore stream. Oh yeah, these guys are horribly murderous. Horribly murderous. We got a lot to talk about with these guys. We'll have some fun with it. I'll sing for anybody. What you want me to say? I want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. I want to wish you a happy Turkey Day. I want to wish you a happy Turkey Day from the bottom of my gravy cup. Stouffer's mac and cheese. Oh, Stouffer's mac and cheese. Oh, who doesn't like some Stouffer's mac and cheese? Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. I want to give you a Stouffer's mac and cheese, a family size Stouffer's mac and cheese. So you can cook it up and have some mac and cheese. Hey, thanks for the donation. 9 CZK. What the hell is a CZK? I have no idea what that even is, sir. Chet's Corona. Hey, you're from Czechoslovakia? Czechia? Is it Czechia or Czechoslovakia? I'm pretty sure that on one side of my family, we actually trace our lineage back to Chets. At least I think so, anyway. It really is so sad what freaking what was it called during World War II? It was called like the League of Nations or something. Yeah, the League of Nations. So I don't know if you guys know this about the League of Nations, but before World War II started, Czechoslovakia had was it the League of Nations or was it it was the Munich Agreement. Okay, it was the Munich Agreement. So in 1938, before World War II, Czechoslovakia had a wall, a huge defensive wall between them and Germany. And the Munich Agreement forced Czechoslovakia to cede the defensive wall to Germany, which was so freaking stupid. And then right after they did that, Germany invaded Czechoslovakia and took it over. I mean, they had this like crazy wall full of like, machine guns and mortar tank guns and all sorts of other things, like concrete wall basically between them and Germany because they were really afraid that Germany was going to take them over. And they literally, Britain and France and Germany and Italy literally forced Czechoslovakia to give that land up, which had the majority of their defensive towers and everything and their defensive walls on it. And then as soon as they gave it up, Germany was like, all right, time to invade. And that's why Czechoslovakia doesn't really exist anymore. I know I say Czechoslovakia because Czechoslovakia is the original name. It doesn't exist as Czechoslovakia anymore, I know. It's confusing to me because I don't really know like the whole details of how things went down over there like after Germany. Like I'm assuming that they managed to get some of their land back after the war was over. Although Russia was involved and a bunch of other stuff, so I'd have to do some research into the history of it. All right, I think I know enough about these guys to do a video on them. I think. Hmm. Mm-hmm. Do 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 do. Man, that fire resistance is like super high, even though it's not like they're not immune. I mean, 80% fire resistance in Nightmare and 70% fire resistance in Normal seems kind of insane. So, according to the interwebs, Czechoslovakia was reestablished, but soon fell under Soviet influence, culminating in a communist takeover in 1948. The country became a Soviet satellite state with a state-controlled economy and was subject to purges of non-communists. Ooh. This period lasted until 1989, when the Velvet Revolution, which peacefully ended the communist rule, and in 1992, the country peacefully split into the Czech Republic and Slovakia. I see. Ah, so Czechoslovakia. I get it. So the Czechs part split and the Slovakia part split, so it's no longer Czechoslovakia. No, I'm tongue tying myself. Interesting. Interesting indeed. All right, let's do the mega demons. We gotta talk about the mega demons. Oh, stuck on a desert island, can only play one class and spec for the rest of forever. It'd be the paladin. I'm sorry, the paladin's the most fun class. He's like one of the best casters. He's like one of the best melees. He even has ranged options like Holy Fire Strider paladins and like crazy stuff like that. I would be absolutely fine with the paladin. I mean, if you restricted me from the paladin, I'd probably go with Amazon. Amazon also has good range, good melee, and no caster, but I mean, well, at least he's very good at ranged and melee. She, Manazon, I'm sorry. She's very good at ranged. Look, okay, it's not my fault she has the face of a man. She looks like a dude. Necromancer is I like a Necromancer because he's obviously the best summoner. But I do have to say that the Necromancer is a little boring as far as options go. He's a summoner, and then he's a summoner, and then he's a summoner, and then he's a summoner. Like, he's pretty much always a summoner, and that's a fun way to build a character, and the Necromancer has always been a fun character for me, but the number of options that you have with the Necromancer are definitely limited. Very limited. Extremely limited. All right, 3, 2, 1, let's jam. Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Monster Families. Today we're going to be looking at the Mega Demon. That's right, I bet you didn't know they were called Mega Demons. I bet you didn't know that the family name was Mega Demon. But yes, they are called Mega Demons, and that is what they are all called. There are many different variations of the Mega Demon. There is the Balrog, the Pit Lord, the Venom Lord. There is also the guest versions of those monsters, which are also the Balrog, the Pit Lord, and the Venom Lord. And the Venom Lord, actually, as far up till now, I've been checking the HP of every single monster and kind of keeping a mental note. And the highest so far that I have encountered is the council members at 22,400. However, look at this big chongus over here with 24,857 HP. Kind of explains why these guys are so ridiculously tanky all the time, and they're just really annoying to kill. However, this specific version is very restricted to Ventar the Unholy, which is the Act 5 wave of the Bale run. So when you fight Ventar the Unholy, he gets a bunch of minions, and they are the Venom Lord minions, and these Venom Lord minions can have 24,857 base HP, not including player count bonuses or anything else that could potentially occur to increase their HP, which is kind of nutty. So the Mega Lord, the Mega Demons, the Pit Lords, the Balrogs, the Venom Lords, they start to appear in Act 4. They're all over the place. You can find them in Chaos Sanctuary relatively easily. If you just walk into Chaos Sanctuary, you will encounter some Venom Lords with relative ease. They've always been a relatively annoying monster, in my opinion, because they are the type of monster that has just, for some reason, super tanky. On top of that, they also have many ways that they can potentially kill you. When they are extra fast, they can be particularly annoying. When I mean annoying, I mean very, very annoying. To the point where they can swarm you and kill you in a matter of seconds. Now, they're not always offensively a danger, but they are like the roadblocks of Diablo 2, I swear. Because whenever you have these guys in an area, they just take up huge amounts of space because of their size. They also have large amounts of HP and resistances, which usually ends up meaning that you can't bypass them as easily as you would like. So you have to spend time chunking them down. Some players have harder times with them than others, and we're going to go over their stats and we're going to talk about why some people have harder times than others. The Mega Demon stats say these archetypal demons are spawned from the hottest fires of hell with no other purpose other than to act as a scourge to mortal souls. Towering over their lesser kin, their leathery wings and treacherous horns make them awesome sight to behold. Wielding jagged blades, they seek to hew limbs from their victims and bring bloody end to any who would oppose the might of their dark lords. Mega Demons have an Inferno attack. That they use when they get within melee range. The Inferno is incredibly damaging, so high fire resistance and fire absorption gear offer some protection. Fight them at a distance whenever possible, or kill them as quickly as possible. Now, I take some affront to some of this. So first off, Inferno is incredibly damaging. No, it's really not. However, Inferno is probably one of the worst sorceress fire spells. In fact, I think it actually is like one of the worst sorceress fire spells. But the interesting thing is that in the translation between player HP and monster HP, Inferno's damage, which is absolutely terrible versus monsters, is actually pretty good versus players. And the reason why Inferno works so well versus players is because players have so much less HP than these monsters do. To put that in perspective, like, let's take a look at the HP of this particular monster, right? So a Mega Demon has between 9,555 and 15,167 HP. Well, if you take 15,167 HP and you divide that by an average player health of 1,500, you find out that the Mega Demons have roughly 10.1 times more HP than you do. Which means that Inferno, which does relatively no damage to monsters, can still do significantly high damage to players because you don't have as much HP as they do. Which oftentimes means that you will get absolutely wrecked by Inferno. Even in Hell difficulty, even with 75% fire resistance, you will find situations that will absolutely annihilate you. And this usually comes down to getting surrounded or having all of them use Inferno on you at the same time. In normal difficulty, you will get wrecked by Inferno. Because in normal difficulty, your HP is so low, we're talking like 100, 200, maybe 300 or 400 if you're lucky, like if you're a druid or a barbarian or something. But for the most part, most players don't even have that much HP in normal difficulty, and even with 75% fire resistance, you will often find that Inferno will absolutely clap your cheeks. It will melt your face clean off your body. And this is not the only monster in the game that uses Inferno either. In fact, earlier in the game, when you go to Act 3, you will encounter these stupid monsters, which are known as Fetish Shamans, and Fetish Shamans also use Inferno, and they will also melt your face. Thankfully, you get to find this out earlier in the game so that you know that Inferno is very bad. However, these guys are not melee fighters, so they don't often run into melee range to specifically use Inferno. You usually have to be stupid enough to run toward them to make that happen. However, Mega Demons are melee monsters, and they do run within melee range, and they will try to hit you immediately with Inferno if they have the ability to. And what I want to show you is I kind of want to show you that exactly. So one of the most fearsome monsters in the Mega Demon family is definitely the seal-popped monster right here. He always spawns with extra fast, and not only does he always spawn with extra fast, but they will synchronize. And this is where this becomes extremely deadly for those who don't know what's going on with this particular monster, because they will swarm you, and they will all use Inferno at the exact same time. This leads to a situation which will often mean your death, and very quickly. You click on this, you run up here, and as you can see, they run over, and all of them use Inferno at the exact same time. And this, if you do not have good fire resistance, maybe combined together with some absorption and a decent amount of HP, can potentially end your life. Now, look at my HP going up and down right now. Do you see my HP going up and down? This character is wearing one of the most broken pieces of equipment in the game, and they are still managing to make his HP shift like that. I want to show you the piece of equipment that I'm using that is allowing me to stay alive in this situation. Look at the crazy effing stats on this piece of gear. Okay? All resistance is 205. Magic resistance. 127 fire absorption. MDR, PDR, 63 of all types, magic damage reduced by. They are still absolutely wrecking my HP to the point where if I don't drink some potions, I'm probably going to die. And if that doesn't express to you how ridiculously stupid the coordinated inferno is that these particular monsters can apply, is absolutely silly. And of course, they also have fanaticism. They come with extra fast. And that's actually a really common way to die. If you are playing in a Chaos Sanctuary and you're standing in just the wrong spot when those particular monsters spawn, there is every possibility that you will die to them because they'll swarm you and they'll kill you in a matter of seconds. And depending on the modifiers that they have, fanaticism, they always have extra fast, extra strong, cursed, and if you have any other monsters around like casting amp or lower res or anything like that, can definitely make it even worse. And that's only if you're like really well geared, you might still die. If you're badly geared, the fire resistance, like if you don't have a decent amount of fire resistance, they'll probably just one-hit KO you with the Inferno. Wonder if I can even get my body back. No, no, no. Give my body. No, no. Haha. Now, Mega Demons have relatively high HP. If you look at some of the other monsters, like the council members, which have 22,000, you can see that even some of the lower HP monsters have upwards of 14,000 or 15,000 HP, and some of the guest versions have up to 24,857, which is absolutely bonkers. They also have 50% physical resistance in Hell difficulty. They don't have any physical resistance in normal or nightmare, though. They do have up to 39% block chance. I'm not entirely sure if that block chance is activated, and the Venom Lord versions in from Ventar the Holy say 50%. It's always a question whether or not the block chance is actually turned on or not, but they all have block chance stats, whether the block chance is turned on or not. But 50% physical resistance is already kind of tanky. They have 0 magic resistance. They have crazy fire res. In normal difficulty, they have 70% fire res, which is kind of unheard of, actually. Most monsters in normal difficulty don't have resistances that high, but the fire resistance of essentially all of the Bullrogs in normal difficulty, even the guest versions, are 70% or higher. In Nightmare, they have 80% or higher, and in Hell difficulty, they are either immune to fire or they're very close to immune to fire. The only one that's not immune to fire specifically is the Venom Lord that spawns with Ventar the Holy, the Unholy, and he's 95%, which is still really freaking high. They don't have any cold resistance at all, so cold seems to be the better element for the guest monsters, and then the non-guest monster versions do have 50% cold res in Hell. And then they have lightning resistance in Hell difficulty too of 75%. It's kind of nutty when you put it all together, because this means that they have really good physical resistance, they have really good fire resistance, they have really good lightning resistance, they have decent cold resistance, and also, not only that, but they have pretty dang good poison resistance across the board. Some of them even being immune to poison in Nightmare difficulty, which, if you like just wrote that down as like a check mark, for instance, I mean, it's kind of nutty. So Mega Demons, like, let's just write down like fire, like Nightmare. We'll do only Hell difficulty, but it's still really impressive just to even do Hell difficulty. So fire 140, cold 50, poison, let's say at the bare minimum 50, physical 50. I mean, just looking at their stats across the board, it's nasty. They're just nasty all the way across the board. And lightning. Lightning 75. So they have no resistance lower than 50% and several resistances higher than 50%. And their HP is in the top tier, essentially, across the board. They have either very good HP or actually the best HP in the game of just about any monsters. And that might explain why, for some reason, the Mega Demons seem to be among like the most nasty monsters to deal with in general. Because they're highly resistant to essentially all elements, except for magic. And they also have some of the highest hit points in the game, and they actually have decent block chance too, which just makes them absolutely nasty monsters to fight. They also come with physical damage and an elemental attack, which, if you're not prepared for the Inferno, if you don't have enough fire res, if you don't have enough HP to absorb the attack, or fire absorption gear, or whatever hell's going on, you can very easily get smoked by the Inferno. So not only does he have a physical option, but he also has an elemental option. And some of the elite or super unique versions of these monsters are extremely difficult to deal with for certain characters. Take, for instance, this guy right here, which is extra fast, like fanaticized. Like, Melee absolutely hates this. Like, yeah, you could probably kill these guys with a caster, but even casters are going to have a little bit of trouble dealing with the extra fast behavior of them swarming on you and essentially killing you very quickly. And they can be deadly, very deadly. And I would assume that hardcore characters have probably died to this guy, specifically Infector of Souls, easily. Being extra fast every single time he spawns, and then also sometimes spawning directly on your head if you're not paying attention. Between him and Lord Dacease, I would have to take a bet on which one has killed the most people. Lord Dacease is close. I don't know. I'm not sure what you guys think, but put down in the comments which one you think kills more people on a like a monthly basis. Do you guys think Infector of Souls Seal Pops kills more people, or do you guys think that Lord Dacease Seal Pops kill more people on a regular basis? It'd definitely be an interesting one to like vote on. There is another variation of these. It's not really something that's super important to talk about, but it is the Uber version. So when you go and you fight the Uber Diablo, not Uber Diablo, Pandemonium Diablo, Uber Mephisto, Uber Bale, and I also believe Uber Iswal, you will encounter a version of these Mega Demons which is immune to basically everything. The only element that they're not immune to is physical, as far as I'm aware, and they're really annoying. I mean, you could kill them if you have physical damage. You could break their resistances with sunders and things like that, but in general, they're just really annoying to deal with because they're immune to essentially like every single element in the game except for physical. They're not particularly like that difficult to deal with if you're a physical damage character, but being immune to every single element certainly doesn't make them the easiest monsters to kill. They spawn from Diablo as well, Pandemonium Diablo. So when you go into Uber Tristram and you go to fight Pandemonium Diablo, he will spawn the immune to everything except for physical Mega Demons on your head, which you can actually use them to stay alive if you have fire absorption because they love to cast Inferno. And by the time you get to this particular point in the game where you're fighting Ubers, you should be relatively well equipped for resistances. And adding in just a little bit of fire absorption can actually be enough to sustain you just simply by them spamming Inferno on you multiple times. It's pretty cool. I think that's pretty much it with these guys. I don't like them. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. Like, as far as monsters go, I feel like they're very damage spongy. They seem to have really high resistances, really high HP. They tend to be very difficult to kill until you're properly set up and you can bypass those resistances. Like, for instance, if you're a physical character and you have amplified damage, you can usually bypass their physical resistance, and then they're easy to kill. Or if you're a cold sorceress, you can bypass their cold resistances with things like Cold Mastery. But if you don't have a way to actively bypass their massive amount of resistances that they have, they literally just have really good resistances versus basically everybody. So until you start getting negative resistances, conviction, lower resistance, amplify damage, decrepify, etc., basically ways to bypass their defenses, they just tend to be really annoying, tanky, damage sponge type monsters. And then eventually, once you get your character set up properly, you have your appropriate, like weapons, amplified damage, you've got your negative resistances, your Griffin's Eye Diadem, your Crescent Moon, and all sorts of other things, then the resistances don't matter so much anymore. And, like, they tend to be relatively easy to kill. It's really that they're only difficult to kill when you're struggling on equipment at the time when you really don't need a monster to be super tanky. And then later on, when you're really, well geared and you would like some tanky monsters to fight, they tend to be much easier to kill because they're tanky in a way that you essentially bypass almost entirely, right? Another interesting thing about these guys, and it is one other thing that I would like to show off, is slow missile. So slow missile actually does work on Inferno, and it's actually a quirk of the game that I think is worth showing off here. So we have to talk about exactly how this works real quick before I show it to you. So in Diablo 2, things really don't have a range. So you would think that things have a range, but they don't really have a range. How Diablo 2 calculates range is it calculates range by using projectile speed plus duration, which is a pretty easy way to calculate range, right? So if I have a skill, and the skill goes, say, 1 yard per second, right? And then the skill lasts for 3 seconds, then I should technically have a range of 3 yards, right? But the thing about Diablo 2 is that you can manipulate the projectile speed by using slow missiles, which then creates an odd situation where the ability doesn't go as far as it should during that same 3 seconds, and then you start manipulating the range of the ability with something like slow missiles. In the case of Inferno, if Inferno goes 1 yard per second and it lasts for 3 seconds, well, if I slow it down by 53%, then you take 53% and you go, okay, well, it's going 1 yard per second, so we go 1 minus, what is that, 47%? Which means that now we have a ability that's going. Actually, it would be the opposite, right? So it would be 0.47, so 0.47 yards per second. So then we take 3 yards and we multiply that by 0.47, and we end up with only 1.41 yards instead of 3. And this actually works on Inferno. So if you find one of these monsters, and let's see if we can find one of these real quick so I can show you what I mean. You can cause them to use their Inferno ability at a much decreased range. So this is one of the monsters, for instance, and you can see that there's something wrong. Of course, I got this crazy character. You can see that there's something wrong with his Inferno, where it just doesn't seem to go as far as it did previously. And he can't even reach me with the Inferno. This is the silly thing. So the computer is trying to use the Inferno on me, but the Inferno isn't actually going far enough because the slow missile prevents it from reaching as far as it should. That's his normal Inferno. So let's look at the normal Inferno range, right? The normal Inferno range actually goes pretty far. And then if I use slow missiles on him, now his Inferno is going to be stunted, and he's going to have a little baby short Inferno. And this is due to the fact that the game calculates the distance of something by the projectile speed and the duration. And in this particular case, the Inferno is not lasting long enough, and it's not going fast enough to reach any significant distance when you slow missiles the Inferno. A lot of abilities in Diablo 2 work this way, in that the actual distance that the ability is capable of going is not an actual range, but more so a projectile speed plus duration equation. Which means that if you slow it down, you can very often reduce the overall distance that the ability is capable of traveling. And this kind of ruins Inferno and makes it very difficult to actually hit anything with it. As you can see, he's having trouble actually hitting me with the Inferno now because the Inferno doesn't go far enough to actually touch me. Whereas if he didn't have slow missiles on him, he would definitely hit me with the Inferno basically every single time. Now, granted, it doesn't do anything if you stand within melee range. So if you're standing within melee range and he uses Inferno on you, he's still going to hit you. So keep that in mind. And I think that's pretty much everything with these guys. There's really not a lot more to talk about with the Mega Demons. They're annoying. They're damage spongy. They're not like too difficult to kill once you have your character established. But early on in the game, they're definitely one of the monsters that just seems to absorb the most hurt and avoid dying the most, which makes them just annoying monsters to fight in general. As always, do appreciate you guys and gals joining. One thing I forgot to talk about. Revives. Do they make good revives? Yes, they do make good revives. Their damage is okay. Their physical damage is fine. They're not like Erdars or anything. But they do make good revives because their physical damage is fine. They also come with the Inferno, which unfortunately the Inferno doesn't really do very much damage at all versus monsters. So that's kind of a loss, but at least their physical damage is good. They're also a size 3 monster, so they work well for telestomping. Size 3 monsters generally tend to work extremely well for telestomping because they lock the other monsters in place. And they look cool with all the little wings pointing out everywhere. As always, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button if you enjoy the content. And as always, keep watching. Alright. Mega Demons are done. Mega Demons, Mega Demons, Mega Demons, Mega Demons. What in the world is that character? This is my fireworks character. Have you never joined me for any of my fireworks videos, Santos? I made a character specifically for the purposes of making fireworks. She's a hero edited character. I mean, she's not a legitimate character, although there is a legitimate version of this character, which is annoying, just as annoying, but you know, not quite so much. I use my advanced technical knowledge of this game to create a character that literally just like has the most visual effects on the screen at any given time. I've done many fireworks videos. You can always look them up and take a look and see. But I mean, it looks like this. There's no actual damage there, though. It's a character specifically designed for, you know, for looking pretty, to look pretty. Oh no, Singist is the one that said he didn't know what it was. Sorry, Santos. I read the wrong name. I read the wrong name. Alright, so the next one we're on to is the Regurgitators. Also ones I don't like because they're damage spongy. Not very particularly difficult to kill, but yeah, just they're very damage spongy in general. Oh, there should be some Regurgitators down here. Let's go check. We've got Doomcasters. I don't want... Oh, there's a Regurgitators. Regurgitators. Come on down, Regurgitators. Punch them in the brown. Corpulence. I'll make sure he's got some damage on him before I make the video. This is single player Santos, and I'm playing on like not a single player account. This is just like my testing account that I use, so I can make as many flawless emeralds as I want. This is a testing bench essentially, like a, you know, like people have computer testing benches where they just have like a motherboard laying there and they just jam random cards in and see if they work. I'm not interested in like picking up items on my testing bench. Okay. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, let's jam. Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Monster Families. Today's family is the Regurgitator. The Regurgitators are relatively innocuous monsters that can be relatively annoying to kill just simply because, well, they don't really. I don't really know how to put it. They have massive amounts of HP, comparatively to most monsters in the game. They also have pretty decent resistances, and they have the ability to heal themselves. All of which combines together with the fact that they like to run away from you and not actually fight you as a monster type that just generally is really annoying to fight because you don't actually get to fight them because they're constantly running away and doing stupid things and healing themselves. Let's read the thing on there, and we're going to talk about them in more detail. So, wretched in appearance and manner, these grotesque abominations are created from the bile and flesh of the tortured damned. While their hulking forms can deliver a surprisingly sound blow, it is their ability to devour, rapidly digest, and then vomit forth the corpse as a poisonous goblet that gives them their name. Regurgitators seem to be primarily concerned with eating and spitting corpses. If you notice, they will walk by you to head for their fallen corpses. These kill these quickly as possible to avoid from being hit by fallen monsters. Shields work well in blocking any corpses that are spit in your direction. Now, when corpulents are wounded, they have a tendency to run over, find a nearby corpse, eat that corpse, and then shoot the corpse at you. I'm not sure if they want to eat the undead corpses, though. Maybe the undead corpses don't count in their scheme for world domination. Of course I had to shatter. Oh, that's right. Don't I have slain monsters rest in peace? That's right. I have slain monsters rest in peace. Hold on. We have to kill a monster without the slain monsters rest in peace to show this effect off. There we go. Now, whenever you have a corpse on the ground, there's a very good chance that the Regurgitator will go find said corpse and eat it. Let's see if we can get him to devour the corpses. Of course, they're going to make a fool out of me. I need more corpses. Come here, Doomcaster. No. 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 I want you to spit corpses. Spitty, spit, spit. Spitty, spit, spit! These are not interested in corpses. You know, them saying that they're more interested in corpses is a lie, because they are not more interested in corpses at all. Maybe if I, like, run away from them real quick and then come back, maybe they'll suddenly be interested in corpses. Are you guys gonna eat corpses now? You don't want to eat corpses? These guys just don't want to eat corpses. They're really ugly too. They really are quite ugly. I mean, just look at them. Just look at their ugly faces. Just the ugliest faces. Almost as ugly as mine. Almost, but not quite. Their eyes are a little bit more beady in the original version. Look at the original version. They have like crazy beady eyes, and in the new version they're still beady, but they're not as beady as the new version. Huh. I'm over here just like inspecting them. Okay, well these two don't want to behave, so we're gonna go find ones that do want to behave. We're gonna go find our own corpulents. Take this armor off so we have corpses that we can actually utilize. There we go. Look, he's doing it. He's doing it. Oh, he shot a poopy corpse at me. Oh, that's so rude. Why would you do that? When they eat the corpses, they actually heal themselves by a pretty large degree as well, which is something that I've always noted. So not only do they run away, eat corpses, shoot them at you, but they also have a tendency to run off and heal themselves as well. And since they don't like to engage in melee combat as much as some of the other monsters that are always engaged in melee combat, they tend to regenerate a lot as well, which is definitely a thing. Honestly, these monsters tend to be the type of monster that you don't really care about all that much, because in general, they just don't really have a lot going for them. Their physical damage might be okay at best, but for the most part, they're not really a threat as much as a lot of the other types of monsters in the game. You really have to kind of stand there and let them kill you. And not only that, but the projectile that they shoot is very slow. And if you get hit by it, I don't even know exactly why you would get hit by it, because it's slow enough that you could easily avoid the projectile. Let's talk about their stats real quick and why they're so tanky. So first off, they have between 11,000 and 19,000, or rather 10.5 and 19,000 HP, which is kind of nutty. It's one of the higher HP pools in the game, just HP wise. So right off the bat, if you have noticed that they're kind of damage spongy, they are damage spongy because they do have particularly high HP. They also spawn with 50% physical resistance in hell difficulty, but they don't have any in normal and nightmare. They have no magic resistance, they have no fire resistance, they have no cold resistance, they have no lightning resistance, and they are usually immune to poison. Which is weird that they are so tanky when they basically have no resistances, but it all makes sense when you realize that they have one of the highest HP pools in the game. Especially considering that they can have things like extra strong, champion modifiers, elite modifiers, player bonus modifiers, which can easily bring this HP pool up much, 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 much higher. In fact, in Players 8, I would assume that they would be well over 100,000 hit points, if not way higher than that, which it's annoying just to have a monster that has a huge hit point pool that you have to chew through essentially, and they're really not much more of a threat than that though. They exist inside of Outer Planes, and I think they also exist in, I'm trying to remember, most of Act 4. They also exist in Act 5 as well, but whenever you encounter them, they're not really required to fight or anything. You can run away from them relatively easily. You can kill a couple monsters and just leave some corpses on the ground. And a lot of the times they run away to go get the corpses. Just kind of poopy monsters all around. I've always admired their design though. I think their design has always been rather interesting. There's another oddity as well, which I think I didn't talk about that with the Cave Leapers, is that Cave Leapers actually do exist in Act 4 as well. They're cliff larkers. And they're just as annoying as their Act 2 variants. Now, when it comes to the regurgitators, another negative side effect of these guys is that, yes, they eat corpses. So if you're a necromancer, or if you're horking, or something like that, they can actually come steal your corpse that you would necessarily want for whatever you're doing. When they eat the corpse, nobody else gets to use it. So if you kill an elite monster, for instance, and you were hoping to run over and hork that elite monster, and the regurgitator comes over and eats the elite monster's corpse, then you don't get to hork it. Which can be necessarily a negative toward these guys for any character that actually wants to keep corpses, like necromancers, like hork barbarians, assassins that are utilizing, death sentries and things like that. It's a positive, though, if you have any kind of resurrecting monsters, because that means they're going to eat the resurrecting monsters, which is not necessarily very common for them to be in the same room, though. You can, however, deal with the actual eating corpses. If you don't care about corpses, you can, of course, just freeze everything and shatter it, and then they have nothing to eat, and they have nothing to shoot back at you, which is a whole other way that you could potentially deal with them. There's not really that more to say about these guys, to be honest. They're kind of bland monsters, other than the fact that they have a special ability that shoots corpses at you. They're very damage spongy due to their high HP, and they don't really have any resistances at all except for physical and poison, really. As always, I'd appreciate you guys and gals joining. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button if you're enjoying the content. And as always, keep watching. moving on to the next one. Bam, bam. Wasn't really much to talk about with those guys anyway, so. We got the vile mothers, the vile children. There's really only like 2 different types. Where is the, why am I not seeing the mages here, though? Like, because there's 2 different types of monsters. It's not just one type of monster. It's the knights and then it's the mages, right?
Not in town.
Let me double check this real quick because I can't remember, and I don't think Area Summit has a page on the other monster type. No, just talking about like the Oblivion knights. There's 2 different names for those monsters. It's not just one monster. And then on top of that, they also have their own little minions, which are the fighter types. So like there's two different classifications of those, and I'm only seeing one classification on the page. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but yeah, they're called the Doom Knights, and then the mages are called Oblivion Knights. So it's Doom Knights and Oblivion Knights. I only have the Oblivion Knight here. Where is the Doom Knight? Why don't I have any Doom Knights on the list? See, there's only Oblivion Knights. There's no Doom Knights. Let's see if we can find an entry on the Doom Knights. Different website, but... Let's pull up the area level list as well, because that we have an interesting anecdote which we can, like, talk about. See if I could find a better page than this, because this only has one Doom Knight variant, and I know that there's at least like 3 Doom Knights. There's like the Doom Knights that can spawn. I wonder if this one talks about the Doom Knights at all. I mean, I guess it kind of does talk about the Doom Knights. Yeah, I mean, it does kind of. It says undead fighter. The souls of the most ruthless, corrupt mortal warriors die, and that Sinwar often come to reside in hell. And then the undead mage is the other version. So I guess technically the Doom Knights and the Abyss Knights are essentially just part of this classification. That's why they have them together. So maybe I shouldn't really bother. We can just shove this up here, and I will think about whether or not I want to use it in the video. There is some other information. I don't know if it has it here. I gotta make sure that I talk about that. So Oblivion Knights are immune to any type of mind or AI controlling effects. It's hard to list all of the AI controlling effects that they're immune to, but anything that controls the AI of a monster, they are immune to. And trying to think of the best way to actually show that off. Like, for instance, they're immune to dim vision, they're immune to attract, they're immune to taunt, they're immune to grim ward. I mean, it's a laundry list. I think they're immune to confuse as well. Yes, I'm pretty sure they're immune to fear. They're one of the few monsters in the game that are immune to essentially all AI controlling webs effects. Let me see if I can pull up a list real quick. We also need to talk about their an exploit that we can use with them. So there's actually an exploit that you can use with Oblivion Knights, and I'll go over that during the video as well. Hopefully I don't forget it. It's actually a really nice exploit. If you don't know about the exploit with Oblivion Knights, it's very useful to clear curses. I'll talk about it. I think that's pretty much it. Let's start the recording. I'm gonna get as much information as I can on these guys, but it's gonna be, this might be one of the longer videos because there's a lot to talk about. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Monster Families. Today we're going to be looking at one of the monster families, which is an undead type. And it's primarily in Chaos Sanctuary and Act 4 in general, although there are some of these in Act 5, like in Worldstone Keep and Throne of Destruction, or Throne of the Worldstone Keep. There definitely do exist in other places, but these primarily exist in Act 4. Now, these monsters do have a lot of interesting quirks, and there are definitely some odd things that you can potentially talk about with these monsters. One of the weirdest about these monsters is that they generally tend to not match the area level of the zone that they're in, which is very weird for most monster types. If you look up area levels, for instance, and you go to Act 4, and you look at Chaos Sanctuary, it says that Chaos Sanctuary is level 85 in Hell difficulty. Level normal difficulty, it's level 28, and nightmare difficulty is level 58. However, if you look at the level of the monsters, it's 24, 56, and 82 for the Doom Knights, and the Doom Knights are here in Chaos Sanctuary. So the Doom Knights don't match the area level of the zone that they're in, which is a weird quirk of them specifically. And I actually encountered this myself one time when I was leveling up a new character, and I was like, like Chaos Sanctuary is level 28, and that should be high enough level for me to make like a spirit sword. I found a crystal sword in Chaos Sanctuary in normal difficulty, took it over to Larzik, and Larzik it, and it did not get 4 sockets. It only got 3. And the reason why it got 3 was because the Doom Knight in normal difficulty is not level 28, matching the area level of the Chaos Sanctuary. He's instead level 4, which is really weird. For some reason or another, the Doom Knights, Abyss Knights, Oblivion Knights, and stuff like that tend to have odd area level, monster level combinations, which makes them not the same level as the zone that they're in, which is weird. There's other things going on with them as well. So first off, there are 2 different types of the Oblivion Knight. There is the Undead Fighter, which is essentially the type that simply charges at you and does nothing more than tries to murder you. They're not particularly very fast. They're not particularly very strong. They're just your like average foot soldier type monster. Then there's the Mage type. Now the Mage type generally has a glowing hand or 2 glowing hands. Now, it's really quite odd because there's two different variations of these. One has a sword and a glowing hand, and the other one has two glowing hands. Now, the mages have the ability to cast a large number of spells. They can not only can they curse you with just about every single curse, they have Decrepify, Lower Resistance, Weaken, Life Tap, and Amplify Damage, which covers most of the nasty curses that you can potentially have on your head. Weaken and Life Tap are probably two of the least effective curses that they have, but they tend to spam the other ones in rapid succession. In fact, they actually have an AI bug that you can exploit if you ever find yourself with amplify damage or lower resistance and you would prefer not to have those on your character. And I'm going to show you how to use this AI exploit bug to essentially clear yourself of whatever curse you have on you. And it has to do with meleeing the mages. So if at any time you approach one of the mages to melee them, you don't even have to actually melee them, but if you approach them as if you are going to melee them, they will curse you with Decrepify every single time. And let me go ahead and get these monsters out of the way, and I will show you what I mean. As you can see, I walked up to the mage, and he instantly Decrepified me. This is a actual ability that you can exploit. Now, why would you want him to Decrepify you? Well, Amplify Damage and Lower Resistance have an extremely long duration of sometimes upwards of minutes, whereas Decrepify has a relatively short duration and wears off relatively quickly, which means that if you're ever in a situation where you have Amplify Damage or Lower Resistance on your head in Chaos Sanctuary with these guys, and you would rather not have that curse on your head, you can always walk up to him and get him to clear that curse from you by casting Decrepify on you. It's a handy little trick that you can utilize anytime you want to when you're in Chaos Sanctuary or around these guys. Of course, if they cast one of the curses on you that you would relatively not care about, like Life Tap, then you just leave that one on you and you don't bother clearing it off. They also have the ability to cast Bone Spirit, Bone Armor, and Bone Armor is actually kind of nasty for the melee characters. Bone Spirit can be nasty on occasion. Now, there are times where you'll come across a multi-shot version of those specific monsters, and the multi-shot version can actually fire 3 Bone Spirits at the same time, which is pretty hilarious. If you ever come across the multi-shot version of the Oblivion Knights, they hurt. Like, when they fire 3 Bone Spirits at you, and the 3 Bone Spirits hit you and bypass all your resistances, because of course it's magic damage, the 3 Bone Spirits can actually slap pretty damn hard. Now, there are a lot of monsters that in the game that are either Doom Knights, Abyss Knights, Oblivion Knights, and there are even guest versions of these monsters. Let me see if I can find the guest versions. So the guest versions are in Act 5. And I don't know if they're actually on the list here. Some of the monsters in the game, like, because I've played for so long, I know that the monsters exist. For some reason, aren't on the list here in the guest monsters. Like, I know for a fact that Oblivion Knights and Doom Knights and whatnot appear in Act 5 in Worldstone Keep, but they're not on the list in the Ariat Summit page. So we'll have to just use the Ariat Summit page non-guest monsters. Now, their HP is middling. It's 5,000 to 9,000, which middle ground HP, as far as I can tell, seems to be around 10k. The highest monster so far that I've encountered going through these monsters is 24,000 HP, and the lowest that I've encountered is around 700. So having between 5,000 to 9,200 HP is definitely middle ground, or a little bit lower on the low mid would probably be more appropriate, which kind of fills the role because they're not very hard to kill. They do have 2 different immunities usually. So whenever you encounter these guys, you will notice that the monsters, the basic grunt knights, are usually immune to fire, and the mages, the ones that cast spells, are usually immune to cold. And I think this is deliberate because it causes a situation where you can never really kill all of them effectively. Like, if you're a fire character, you can definitely kill the mages effectively, but have trouble with the knights. If you're a cold character, you can kill the warriors effectively, but can't kill the mages because they're always immune to cold, and so forth and so on. And having them have 2 different immunities guaranteed every single time definitely is a bit of a pain in the butt. I remember back when Cold Sorceress used to be like one of the most dominant characters in the game. before Sunders, you would often go into Chaos Sanctuary and all the monsters would be dead except for the Oblivion Knights, which were immune to cold, and they would never touch them. They would just ignore them, they would teleport by them, they would do whatever it took not to kill them, but they would just leave all the Oblivion Knights alive because they couldn't kill any of them, which I always thought was rather hilarious. And I would just run around as a melee character just swatting them down, but um, just a fun little anecdote from the past of Diablo 2. Nowadays, with the Cold Sunders, they don't need to do that anymore. So the Cold Sunders allow them to bypass the cold immunity, and of course allows them to kill them most of the time. Now, they do have some block chance. I'm not sure if their block chance is active, but it does say that they're up to 29% block chance. They have 33% physical resistance, which is a little on the low end. 50 tends to be the average as far as physical resistance goes, with some monsters being higher and some monsters being lower. So they're definitely on the lower end of the spectrum of physical resistance, which means that, for instance, if you had, say, like amplify damage, you would take 33 minus 100%, and they would be sitting at 33 minus 100% would be, no, it wouldn't be 0. It would be less than 0, right? So 33 minus 100. So it would be negative 67%, which is actually pretty good. So amplify damaging these guys with physical damage is going to make it relatively easy for you to kill them. They don't have any magic resistance except for the Oblivion Knights, which for some reason have 25%, which is a relatively mediocre amount for any character that's dealing magic damage, like Hammerdins or Bone Spear Necromancers. So it's not really that big of a deal. Fire resistance, they have lots of it. In normal difficulty, they have between 40 and 80%. In nightmare difficulty, they have between 40 and 100%. And in hell difficulty, they have between 40 and 100% fire resistance. Even the Oblivion Knight, which is the one that's immune to cold, has pretty good fire resistance as well, which makes them relatively tanky. Cold resistance, they generally tend to have really good cold resistance as well, between 20 to 180% cold res. As you can clearly see, with 180% cold res, the mages were completely unbreakable in the previous versions of the game before Sunder Charms. So if you had a character, let's say that you had a negative 150% conviction, you divide that by 5, which gets you 30%. And let's pretend you had, I don't know, I know it doesn't go that high, but let's pretend you had an 80% lower res, and you divide that by 5. That's 16. So you add those two together, and you get a total negative res of 46 to break a resistance. That means that even if you had maximum lower res and maximum conviction on that target with 180%, you would only reduce them by 46, which is still 134%, which is still unbreakably immune. I mean, this basically means that you never could have broken them before to kill them with cold resistance, or cold damage in general. And that's what a lot of people mean by unbreakably immune when they talk about unbreakables. However, since Sunder Charms have been added, that of course takes that 180, sets it to 95, and then makes it a lot easier for you to further reduce that 95% resistance, which actually does make them killable in the regular game. They also have pretty good lightning resistance, too, and some of them are immune to lightning. As you can see, the Abyss Knights are immune to lightning. In general, they tend to have pretty good resistances, and it almost seems like they were designed to counter casters, because they don't have as high physical resistance, and they don't really have large amounts of HP, but they do tend to have a large amount of resistances in general to fire, cold, and lightning, even if they're not immune to them. And then poison resistance, they also have pretty decent poison res, too. From 40 to 60 in normal to 50 to 75 in hell difficulty, which really makes them very tanky across the board, just in every single way. I mean, I'm looking at these stats, and I'm seeing monsters that have very good resistances comparatively to a lot of the other monsters that you'll see. Like, a lot of the other monsters tend to have 1 good resistance or 2 good resistances. But these guys have 1, 2, 3, 4, even a little bit of magic res they've got on top of that. Now, these are undead monsters, and because they're undead monsters, you can bypass a lot of this by simply using Holy Bolts or Fist of the Heavens, which is why Foe Paladins work so well in Chaos Sanctuary, because they bypass most of these resistances, and they don't have to deal with any of them. On top of this, since they are undead monsters, there are specific restrictions that have to do with these monsters. Like, one of the weird restrictions with these monsters is that AI controlling effects tend not to work on them. Now, I'm pretty sure that you can AI control the regular grunts, like these guys, but you can't AI control the Oblivion Knights. Notice that when I try and taunt the Oblivion Knight, nothing happens, but I can taunt every single one of these other guys. Some effects in the game essentially are restricted from working on the Oblivion Knights, and there's kind of like a laundry list of abilities that don't work on them. I can't remember all of the ones that don't work on them right off the top of my head, but it usually has to do with any ability that forces the monster to do something other than what they would normally do. Like Taunt, for instance, changes the AI of the monster and forces him to come over into melee range and fight you as a melee monster. And because that's forcing the monster to change its AI, that doesn't work on Oblivion Knights at all. Which means that the Oblivion Knights are unique in the game because there's very few monsters in the game that are immune to AI controlling effects, except for bosses. Think about a boss as an example. You can't use dim vision on a boss. You can't use confuse on a boss. Like, you can't use a lot of abilities on bosses because they're immune to those abilities by default. Well, for some reason or another, the Oblivion Knight has that same protection that the bosses have versus those same AI controlling effects, if you want to think about it that way. What else is there to talk about with the Oblivion Knights? Of course, there's always the super unique Oblivion Knight, which is up here, and his name is Lord Dacease. Could be interesting to talk about Lord Dacease for a second, because Lord Dacease used to have an interesting modifier that a lot of people don't know about. So Lord Dacease was originally planned and actually did have a special ability that would cause him to knock items out of your hand and they would fall on the ground. This might sound absolutely nutty, especially in a game where, you know, like, you can have a really, really expensive weapon in your hand, but Lord Dacease could cause your weapons to fall on the ground. Now, they had eventually figured out, like, hey, this is probably not a good idea. Like, having a monster, like, throw your grief on the ground and then having somebody be able to, like, pick up and snatch your grief, probably not a good idea. So they did eventually take that modifier away from Lord Dacease, which is pretty funny. But imagine, if you will, you're fighting, like, and you've got, like, some ridiculously expensive item in your hand, like a Breath of the Dying, or you're running like a, you know, like a really, like a perfect death or a last wish, and Lord Dacease just, like, slaps your last wish out of your hand and drops it on the ground. And then you're just like, somebody just takes it and then leaves the game with it. Speaking of, earlier I talked about the triple bone spirits. There you go. So as you can see, multi-shot Oblivion Knights have the ability to cast 3 bone spirits, which I believe is the only monster in the game that can multi-shot bone spirits, by the way, which hurt really badly. Because they're magic damage and you don't have any resistance for bone spirits, if he hits you with all 3 bone spirits, it actually can do significant amount of damage to any character. And that's not even Lord Dacease. That's, I think the multi-shot one is Viper Rend. Do be aware that these multi-shot versions can be absolutely nasty damage-wise. And because no resistances can be had versus magic damage except for that one stupid shield, the bone spirits actually can smack the crap out of you. So pay attention. Lord Dacease is actually one of the monsters that a lot of people die to on a regular basis. So this particular guy, the same one that could potentially have slapped your last wish out of your hand and then somebody stole it and ran away with it, he is also one of the monsters that, if you press the seal at the wrong time, can potentially kill people. It has to do with the fact that he always spawns with fanaticism, and on top of that, he has a group of melee monsters with him. So if he spawns directly on your head, you have a group of melee monsters with fanaticism all smacking you at the same exact time, which can very easily kill players. Another very interesting quirk about this particular monster is where he spawns. So, very oddly, he has a very broad like spawn area. And when I say broad, I mean really broad. I'm not sure exactly what the bug is that causes Lord Deceased to spawn in such really weird locations. But to give you an idea, Lord Deceased can spawn all the way down here. He can spawn all the way up this way, this entire pathway. He can spawn down this pathway. He can potentially spawn all the way up here on this pathway. And he can potentially spawn all the way over here next to the seal. And I have actually seen him spawn directly on top of the seal before, even in Diablo 2 Resurrected in the latest patches. Which means that you can click on the seal, and Lord Deceased and his entire group of monsters will literally just spawn directly on your head and kill you. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have died to Lord Deceased in hardcore difficulty. I would imagine that that's actually a point of contention. Like, people getting pretty upset that you didn't, like, call out that you were spawning Lord Deceased, or clicking on the seal and then, like, teleporting away as fast as they can so that they don't accidentally have Lord Deceased spawn on their head. It's rather scary sometimes, especially if you are not particularly very strong, or, you know, like, yeah. But I mean, even if you are well decked out, even if you do have lots of defense, even if you do have good block chance, good armor, you know, good defense, having like a really nasty pack of Lord Deceased spawn on your head can still potentially kill you. It has to do with the coordination of all monsters attacking at the exact same time, which can overwhelm your defenses, and you know, like potential critical strikes or deadly strikes and things like that that could also potentially happen. Like, there's a lot of leeway when it comes to that particular effect, but having an entire pack of monsters with fanaticism and whatever other mod he's running, by the way, which could potentially be cursed, extra strong, extra fast, you know, like, there's a lot of variation, can absolutely annihilate you, even if you're well geared. Other than that, I don't think there's a lot more to talk about with these guys. There is a note here that says that Doom Knights and Abyss Knights have an innate spectral hit ability, which basically means random elemental damage when they strike you. They cannot be affected by Barbarian's Taunt and cannot use Barbarian's Grimward either. The random spectral hit I was unaware of. I didn't know that they randomly did elemental damage. That's actually kind of crazy. That might explain why when you come here with, like, negative resistances early on in the game, that Chaos Sanctuary tends to kick your butt, because getting hit by one of those guys means high physical damage and also high elemental damage. I wonder if I can get one of them to, like, poison me or something. I'm sure poison is probably on the list, right? Let me just pull, like, one of them over here. Of course, there's got to be more than one. I don't want you in the mix. I mean, it's saying that the Doom Knights have the spectral hit ability, and that's like the regular grunt, like, warrior type monster. So that's what I want to test. Alright, so let's give this a try, and let's see if he can actually do elemental damage to me. I want to see the, like, the chill effect, or, like, the poison effect or something. I have to take off the armor so I can actually get hit. Yeah, he does. Look at that. I got poisoned. Interesting. So they do have a random elemental damage of essentially any element, including poison. So fire, lightning, ice, and poison. Interesting. The poison is kind of nasty because, you know, the monsters tend to crit poison a lot, and it's disgusting. There is another version of these monsters. It's actually the one that's shown here, where they actually have a sword and a spell at the same time. I wonder if I can find one of these guys real quick, just for lulz. They're usually on the causeway, or they're in the River of Flame, if I remember correctly. Let me check real quick and see if we can find some of the other variation. Yeah, here's the other variation right here. So this is a variation that has the weapon and a shield, and they're really quite odd. Like, they don't tend to cast the curses like the Oblivion Knights do. However, they do have the bone armor, and they cast the spells, but they don't seem to cast the bone spirit like the other ones do. This is an odd variation called the Abyss Knights. I'm assuming the Abyss Knight is on here. Yeah, it's right here. The Abyss Knight is basically like a mix hybrid version between the Oblivion Knight and the Doom Knight, where the Doom Knight is the 100% physical damage version that just kind of like goes in there and melees and then has like the little spectral hit addition. And the Oblivion Knight is the 100% caster. This version seems to be the like half melee, half caster. I wonder if they can be taunted. Let me see. They can be taunted. Okay, so in the case of the Doom Knights and the Oblivion Knights, only the Oblivion Knights can't be taunted. The Doom Knights, which are the grunts, can be taunted. So it's really quite interesting to see that this particular hybrid version that has the ability to cast did not inherit the ability to avoid the AI controlling effects. It looks like also if you taunt them, they will melee instead of using their actual like ability. But they don't have all of the caster functions like the Oblivion Knights do. So they're missing a huge portion of the caster functions. Like, they don't get access to Bone Spirit, it looks like. They don't get access to any of the curses. It looks like, according to this, they have Bestow as well, which is a heal. I can't say I've ever seen them heal before, but maybe I'm wrong? I can't remember them ever healing. But if they have the Bestow ability, which is the heal ability, then maybe they can heal. The Bestow ability is the same ability that the Haradrim have, the one that allows them to resurrect undead skeletons and things like that, or whatever undead happens to be nearby. But I've never actually seen an Oblivion Knight heal anything before. Maybe I am learning something new today. Maybe we learn something new. We brains expand with knowledge. Let me see if I can pinpoint out like one Oblivion Knight and then like come together with a little pack here. Let me see what I can do. I'll have to clear out a little bit.
I need mana.
We need something for him to heal too, right? So probably a Doom Knight. And so what I'll probably do is I'll just stand there, see if I can get him to heal the Doom Knight. Or another Oblivion Knight, maybe. Alright. Of course we got like a big pack of demons. Oh my god, stop stealing my mana. Alright, here we go. We've got 3 Oblivion Knights and 1 Doom Knight. So I'm going to attack the Doom Knight, and I'm going to bring his HP down. Will he heal? That's the question. I'm really doubting this. If they do have the Bestow ability, like, I'm doubting whether or not they will actually even cast it. It could be one of those situations where they have the Bestow ability, but they, like, refuse to use it. I mean, you can clearly see that they're not using the ability. Like, Bone Spirit, regular ranged attack, regular ranged attack, regular ranged attack, regular ranged attack. They definitely seem to be focusing almost entirely on spamming their ranged abilities. I'm going to try damaging them specifically and seeing if that changes anything. I mean, this guy is really wounded right here. And I'm not seeing a single one of them heal him at all. Yeah, I don't know about that. Maybe it's in their files, but they just don't use it. If they do have the bestow ability, it definitely seems like it's something that is really low on the ranking of them to actually cast. So maybe it's not something that you even have to worry about if they're not actually going to ever cast the ability. Well, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals joining. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button if you are enjoying the content. Before I leave, I will say that they make okay revives. They're not the best revives, and they're not the worst revives. They're just mediocre. Definitely grab them if you don't have anything, but, I mean, meh. As always, thanks for watching, and keep watching. All right, so that is those annoying monsters out of the way. I knew that was going to be a longer video because there's so much to cover for them, but it be what it be. Now we have the Vile Childs. I wonder if we should include one of the Act 5 monsters in this list. So I know that these guys are technically part of this specific family, but at the same time, there is a version of these vile children that appears from this monster, and they're called pain worms. The pain worms, I don't know if we should include them in that list because they definitely do seem to be rather unique. I'm gonna take a quick restroom break. I'll be right back. I'm gonna think about it. I'm thinking about it. Cat back. Yeah, I decided not to include the pain worms. We're not going to include those. We not include. No. No. Dying. No. No. And somebody just made a purchase on the GG Mentor shop. Dang, Boogus, he's a board. Oh, that's a mean board. Mr. Boogus, what are you barking at? Oh no, what is it? A monster over there? Barking at a cat. It's a cat. What did that cat ever do to you? Oh yeah, I already ate some turkey. I had some turkey earlier. I did indeed eat the turkey. Delicious turkey. Hold on, I'm going to send a thank you to this person who bought a shaka. Let's see here. Thank you. Hit the button. Ah, Megan, I see you got yourself a ugly green beanie condom for your head. Congratulations. It's going to look very ugly. Thank you for the purchase. I appreciate it. And happy Thanksgiving. Cody? What does Cody want? What is in here? What is in there? Does anything in there? Anything inside there? Or is that empty? Is that an empty? Do you got anything inside your canoggin? Is there anything in the canoggin? Cody was a bad boy today. Yeah, I'm gonna tell on him. He was a bad boy. So I put him upstairs so he would have some food and some water because his only other choice is to get locked in the bedroom when we're gone because he's bad. All right, so I put him up here and I trusted him. I trusted him to be a good as boy. And do you know what he did? He dug in the trash and ripped out a bunch of stuff and spread it all over the house. I had some bread that I bought up here so I could make some sandwiches, some turkey sandwiches. He stole the entire loaf of bread, ripped it open, and ate all of the bread. You want to tell him? You want to tell him about how you was bad today? Huh? You want to tell him more about how you was the baddest boy? Yeah, a baddest boy. That's right, baddest. Baddest. Don't think I'm not. I'm not forgive. I know forgive. He had plenty of food in his bowl. He did not need to eat that loaf of bread. He had plenty of food in his bowl. He did not need to eat a loaf of bread. He's a thiefums. Stealing. Thiefum stealing. Stealing thiefer. He said, no, don't talk to me that way. All right, grotesques. They're not particularly complicated monsters. It's probably going to be a short video, but we'll talk about them regardless. I don't see any reason why not. Alright, here we go. 3, 2, 1, let's jam. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Monster Families. Today we have the Vile Mother. Now, there's no actual monster named the Vile Mother in the game, but that's actually what the family of monsters is called, that this monster family comes from. They have a lot of different names, like Flesh Spawner, Stygian Hag, and Grotesque. The main thing about these particular monsters is that they are infinite spawning portals of smaller monsters known as the Vile Childs. Yes, they're vile children, which are flesh beasts, Stygian dogs, and grotesque worms. The vile mothers simply just do one thing. They just spawn monsters. It's almost like it's an attack. They literally just swing their arm, and as they swing their arm, they bring forth these little vile children into being. And they will continue to do this for like forever. They will just stand in the back and they will just spawn vile children after vile children after vile child. And the crazy thing is that they're not particularly very strong, but they seem to have one purpose in mind. And that purpose seems to be, well, F you melee characters. There are certain monster types in the game which seem to be designed for no other purpose other than to make melee life a living hell. Now, why do they do this? Well, because as a melee character, you generally have to hit and kill every single target, like one at a time. Even as a Zealer, you still have to run around and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You don't get to actually, just kill one monster at a time. And sometimes focusing your damage on those monsters can be a little bit difficult. Well, melee characters in general tend to have the worst problem with these, especially when combined with other infinitely spawning monsters, like we have currently in this particular game. You'll notice that we also have, at the same time, we have maggots. So imagine, if you will, a wall of baby maggots and vile children blocking your pathway while you try to get to wherever it is that you're going. Now, the easiest way to deal with the vile children is to not fight the vile children. It's to go specifically for the grotesques. Now, there are a couple ways that you can do this. So taunting the mothers will actually stop them from making babies and will get them to come directly over to you to attack. You can also potentially confuse them, which causes them to attack other monsters. You can't freeze them because most of the time they're very resistant or immune to cold. So unless you have a cold sunder, good luck. You can, however, stun them, do anything in your power to stop them from making their babies. The mothers are the most important thing to take care of right off the bat. Now, another important thing about these guys is that they can't be horked, the babies anyway. So if you try to hork the babies, like these guys right here, it just doesn't work. And of course I was wearing Tyrael's Might when I killed them, so there's no... there are no corpses! Dope. Let's demonstrate. So here we have one of the babies, and if I try to hork the baby, you get gold, maybe. You can get, like, nothing, basically, out of them, because they don't actually drop anything, but, like, gold or keys. You can, however, use the Find Potion ability on them, and you can get infinite numbers of potions from them, which is another various thing that you can do, and, of course, without my armor, I'd immediately die, which is fine. I keep forgetting that Tyrael's Might has Slain Monsters Rest in Peace on it, which prevents me from being able to show off things like horking. But, it'd be what it'd be. Let me drag one of these guys over here and I'll show it off to you this way. So here we have 4 of the corpses, and you can, of course, make potions from them. So despite the fact that you can't get anything loot-wise from the babies, you can, however, get an infinite number of potions, including full rejuvenation potions. If you'd like to just sit there and farm these guys infinitely, you can actually just get infinite full juvies from them using the Find Potion skill. However, you cannot get anything really from them with the Find Item skill except for, like, keys, gold, and, like, potions. It really kind of depends. I can't believe a ring popped out of one of them. That's kind of neat. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you can hork them for stuff. Let's drag a couple more back. And let's hork them again. Horking. All right, let's get as many of these guys in here as we can so we can test hork. Ah, so maybe I am wrong on this. That's weird. So the maggots can't be horked. The baby maggots. But the baby vile children can be horked? Does that mean you could just infinitely hork the babies for equipment? I wonder if you could actually get anything good from them. That would be kind of a really crazy, like get like a setup where you have like infinite vile children coming and then like a barbarian sitting there horking and seeing if you can get like infinite gear. I was always under the impression that just like the maggots, can't get anything worthwhile from them. Now, the maggots, I know for a fact you can't get anything from them. In fact, I tested this earlier. So there's the baby maggots, and you can see I can hork the corpses, but nothing comes out of them. Oh, I got gold from one of them. But it looks like the vile children do actually drop items. That's rather interesting. There's a cutlass from one of the vile children. So the mothers themselves tend to be kind of annoying. They don't really engage in melee as often because they're more often trying to create babies, which forms like a living shield between you and them and makes it very difficult to essentially deal with them. But deal with them you must, because honestly you need to kill them quickly. You don't really get any EXP for these guys infinitely. So, like, there are going to be some of these that give EXP, but as far as I'm aware, the infinite spawning of them does not give experience points after a certain point. Like, if a monster spawns with, like, 7 or 8 of these around them, then the 7 or 8 that you have originally will give you experience points, and then I'm pretty sure that the ones after that give you none, which they don't generally like infinite spawning glitches, although I could be wrong about that too, because I was under the impression you couldn't hork these guys. It'd be funny to see, like, if we could just simply test real quick and see if you could actually get, like, infinite EXP for killing the babies. Of course, this guy is level 96, so I don't even know if he'd get any EXP from these guys anyway. What are we at? 313? I mean, as far as I'm able to tell, I'm not getting any EXP. Let's try killing one of the mothers. Okay, so we did get EXP for the mother, but we did not get any EXP for the babies. For the babies. So I think we've definitely proven at the very least that the infinite EXP would definitely not be possible. But for some reason they seem to be horking items, which is maybe something that we might even make a video on. That sounds kind of funny. Going back to the stat sheets, you can see that the grotesque mothers have pretty high HP at 9,200 to 15,455. And of course they did this on purpose because they don't want you to be able to kill the vile mothers and stop them from making the babies. So they have particularly high HP. In comparison, low HP is like between 700 to like 3,000, and high HP, extremely high HP, would be like 20,000 to like 24,000. So they're definitely not like the highest HP monsters, but they still have really good HP comparatively to most of the lower HP types. They also have really high physical resistance in hell difficulty, 66%. Where the average is 50, they're above the average, which might explain to you why a lot of the times attacking them as a physical character seems to be relatively horrible, because they reduce your damage by 66%. So you only get 33% of your total physical damage left when you're dealing with the vile mothers. They have no magic resistance. They have no fire resistance. They do have particularly good cold resistance and are immune to cold resistance in hell difficulty. And they have no lightning resistance and no poison resistance. As I said earlier, these guys seem to be designed by their very nature to be like a giant middle finger to melee characters. Casters don't have much problem with these guys unless you're a cold caster. But most melee characters do have issues with the vile mothers because their physical resistance is so high. They spawn tons of babies, which have to be dealt with. Their HP is pretty decent as far as that goes. And, like, in general, as a physical damage character, they just kind of are really annoying. They also spawn these little babies. These are the vile children. Now, the vile children aren't as bad as the mother. Obviously, the vile children have relatively low HP with only 2.3 to 4.3k, which is actually not bad at all. And their physical resistance is much lower with only 25% in hell difficulty and 0 in the others. They have 0 magic, 0 fire. They still have the cold resistance that their mother has, and they have no lightning and no poison res. So in general, they're not hard to kill, and they spawn relatively quickly, but a lot of the times, especially if you have multiple mothers in the background spawning these, they can overwhelm and surround you relatively quickly. Now, granted, even a handful of these isn't too much of a threat, but Getting stuck in a pack of these can sometimes lead to your death just simply because you can't get out of the danger. So, like, if you get stuck in a situation where you have a lot of these surrounding you and you can't get out, you can potentially just die to attrition. Now, these do also exist in Act 5. There are guest versions of the Act 5 monsters, and they pretty much all have the same exact stats as their Act 4 counterparts. There is one other version of these guys, and I plan on doing a separate video for these, but the Vile Children actually do exist in a different form, which is a rather unique, actually. It's part of the Putrid Defiler, which is the Pain Worm, and the Pain Worm seems to be exactly the same as the Vile Children, in fact, having the same graphic and everything, except for the fact that they glow. And they come from the dead bodies of monsters. So essentially, what the Putrid Defilers do is they run around and they infect their own demons, and then when the demon dies, they create one of these little pain worms that then pops out of their corpse. Now, they're not really associated with these right here because they have different stats and they seem to be spawned in a different way. But overall, they have the same graphic and kind of the same stats as well because they're not particularly very strong. But I digress. Going back to the mothers and the children, one of the interesting things about the children, the Vile Children, is that they have the ability to deal cold damage, and they have the ability to deal poison damage, which does make them a little bit of a threat because the poison damage a lot of the time crits, and then you end up losing all of your HP, which can be an absolute pain in the butt. Running things like cleansing definitely helps out, or having fade so that you don't have to worry about the poison damage as much. And of course, as a melee character, since they have a chance to deal cold damage, if you don't have Cannot Be Frozen, could potentially be the end of you because they can lock you down with chilling effects, which is nutty. So most melee characters usually try to get some form of Cannot Be Frozen. Specifically because a lot of monsters in the game have the ability to dish out cold damage in some way, shape, or form. I think that's pretty much it. They're not like the most complicated monsters in the game. They don't generally have like the worst stats to deal with, but they can be particularly nasty specifically for melee characters. Their graphics kind of neat, and the fact that they spawn their little babies all over the place is kind of grody. But, I mean, looking at them, they resemble some sort of like, like crazy demonic form from another dimension. The original graphics, I kind of lean toward the original graphics a little bit more. I don't know, they look a little bit more evil in the original versions, I feel like. See if I can get rid of these hit lords real quick without killing the grotesques. There we go. So we can get a good look at the pretty faces. Look at how pretty they are. So pretty. I wonder if there's an upper limit to how many babies they're allowed to spawn each. And then, like, if there's, like, an upper limit to how many total that they can spawn. I swear there's been times where I have been absolutely ridiculously surrounded by these things to the point of absurdity. And then sometimes it feels like they just stop spawning them for whatever reason. And I don't know if it's because they hit like an upper limit and they're not allowed to go any further than that, or maybe, I don't know. Like right now you can clearly see they're just attacking, and we currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the battlefield, maybe 7, I might be counting wrong. And there's 2 grotesques. And they don't seem to spawn any more grotesques while those 7 are alive. But then, of course, if I kill a couple of the babies, then all of a sudden they'll start spawning more of them. Another interesting thing is that if you pay attention to the graphic when they make the children, they actually spawn them out of their chest. You see their chest actually opens up, and they spawn the babies out of their their actual whole chest opens up like some sort of freaking Aliens movie or something. It's kind of grody. I'm curious how they have infinite resources to just keep casting their little chest babies over and over again. I think that's pretty much it with these guys. As always, I do appreciate. Oh, you know what? Actually, one more thing. Necromancers. So revive necromancers. Do they make good minions for necromancers? They're mediocre at best. They're not really amazing. The minions die really, really quickly. They do have melee damage, which is okay, but they just don't really have the HP to stay alive. The mamas, I mean, are okay, I guess, if you can isolate them from the babies, but not really. I mean, like, as far as minions go, they're fodder. I would put them in the fodder category. They're definitely something that you could potentially grab if you have nothing else and you just need to get your armory started. They work really well for skeletons, like these guys, because their corpses work for anything. Even though they're not exactly the best monsters out there, you can very easily use these guys to farm for skeletons, like skeletons and skeleton mages, because you can just use their corpses for skeletons. And I probably wouldn't use them for revives, honestly. As always, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button if you enjoy the content. And as always, keep watching.